So I wish to take the opportunity to formally welcome each and every one of you. Shalom, salams, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first Jewish-Muslim dinner. On behalf of the two... On behalf of the two peak bodies, the Islamic Council of Victoria and the Jewish Communities Council of Victoria, representing the Muslim and Jewish communities respectively, it is a great pleasure to be hosting this particular event, supported by the VMC Victorian Multicultural Commission. I wish to first start by acknowledging the original custodians of this land, the Wurundjeri people, and pay our respect to their elders past and present.
They're on table 8, by the way. I'd like to welcome all our VIPs, and everybody here is a VIP in their way. Apart from you, Jamie, maybe that's... We've got a number of VIPs. We'd particularly like to thank the Minister, Robin Scott. This event is testament to the Victorian communities and government's commitment and opposition's commitment, because it's been bipartisan, commitment to genuine multicultural and multi-faith policies and strategies and real grassroots engagements. And we hope this is the start of many things to come. You can go on for the next bit. No. We thank you all for your support and your attendance. Just your coming is very much appreciated.
Yin and yang here. We would like to take the opportunity and personally thank David Marlowe, my counterpart, and the JCCV. It's been a real pleasure working with our counterparts, and on behalf of the Islamic Council of Victoria and the Jewish Communities Council of Victoria, we look forward to pioneering many new frontiers, to lead by example and show together we can achieve many wonderful, inspiring things. We hope you enjoy the evening. Oh, okay,
yeah,
sorry, it is my bit, okay. Okay. It is my great pleasure to invite my new Jewish friend, the president, newly elected president of the JCCV, Jennifer Hubbard, to say a few words on the Jewish community peak body.
Thank you, Neil and David, for that kind introduction. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you here to this evening's dinner. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting, the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I'd also like to welcome our very special guests this evening, the Honourable Robin Scott, Minister for Multicultural Affairs, and Inga Peulich, State Minister for Multicultural. Today is an appropriate day to be holding this dinner, as it is Harmony Day, a day in the calendar set aside to celebrate Australia's cultural diversity. This gathering epitomises the themes of Harmony Day: inclusiveness and respect. This gathering brings together people from two of the many different cultural and faith groups which make up our diverse community. One of the strengths of our community is that the many different groups who have found their homes here have been encouraged to maintain their culture while at the same time becoming an integral part of the Australian community, as a result of the support for multiculturalism in Victoria from many sectors of the community and across the political spectrum, as evidenced today by the support of the members of the Victorian Parliament who are here this evening. The Jewish and Muslim communities are part of this broad mix and are both communities which have made an important contribution to Australian society. Community harmony is strengthened when different groups making up that community are not strangers to each other, when they have some knowledge of each other's culture and interests. While we can study this in an academic sense, tonight affords an opportunity to meet and discuss our two communities in an informal atmosphere over dinner, a means of getting to know each other better. I hope that those attending tonight's dinner will use this as an opportunity to make connections and deepen their understanding of each other's communities. This is also an opportune time to tell you, for those who aren't familiar, a little bit about the JCCV and our affiliates. Many of you may have come into contact with the JCCV in our role as the representative organisation of the Jewish community. However, our activities are broader than this. We have approximately 60 affiliates which represent the broad spectrum of the Victorian Jewish community, a number of whom are represented here this evening. Our affiliates include schools and synagogues, as well as welfare organisations, sporting groups, youth groups, professional association, amongst others. And we provide support to our affiliates and members of the Jewish community in a variety of areas, such as child protection training, pastoral care, education regarding alcohol abuse amongst young people, just to name a few. So we're a very busy organisation, but one of the things we do on a regular is to meet with other community organisations, other faith and cultural groups within the Victorian community to further harmony we have in our state. I'd also like to thank those who made this evening possible, in particular the sponsorship and support of the Victorian Multicultural Commission and the Office of Multicultural Affairs and Citizenship, as well as the staff of the JCCV and ICV, in particular the two executive directors, who, as you can tell from the interaction as they introduced us the evening, have gone well on their way to making harmony between the two communities. I'd also like to thank Hilary McMahon from the JCCV office, who helped to make this evening possible. As I mentioned above, the purpose of this evening is to allow you to speak to each other. So I'm going to finish here, and I hand over to Gaith, who is the president of the ICV, to say a few words, and then to get on with the main task of the evening, which is to get to know each other. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, peace to you all. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past and present. As a sign of the newfound working together between our two communities, I'm going to leverage off Jennifer's welcome to all the distinguished guests and not take you through that whole list all over again, so thank you, Jennifer. I actually want to talk a little bit about symbols tonight, take a few minutes to talk about symbols, and let me give you some context about why. I've had a really busy weekend. I was at a function for one of our community organisations last night. I flew to Sydney this morning for the meeting of the national executive of our national body, and then I was on plane back so I could be with you tonight, and then I'm on a plane back to Sydney tomorrow for work. And when I shared that with an acquaintance of mine, he said to me, "Why on earth are you going back to Melbourne? Why don't you just stay in Sydney? It's just a dinner. It's not that big a deal. It's just one of those symbolic things." And I said, "You're right. It is symbolic, but I wouldn't use the word just. It is symbolic, and symbols are really important things. Symbols are what we use as signposts. Symbols are what people use to guide them when they don't know what to do or how to behave. They're the hooks that we actually build our culture around. So symbols are really important. So I actually don't mind saying this is a very symbolic event. Actually, it's one of the reasons why I would have moved whatever I could to make sure I was here tonight, because it is a very symbolic event. But what's it a symbol of? It's a symbol of our renewed commitment to some really common values, and our willingness to work together around those common values and to use those as the bridges to help us overcome those differences that we have. And of course there are going to be differences. That's just the nature of what communities are like. But these symbols are really important. And as faith and community leaders, it's really important for us to be the ones who paint and refresh those symbols every so often, because it's our community who look towards us. It's our community who look towards us to see what we do together. Because when they don't see us interacting or engaging, then they have no incentive to do it themselves. Whether we like it or not, we are role models for our community. So these symbols are really important. We had a really good function last week, and all of our elected representatives and the ministers here tonight, as well as the Leader of Opposition and the Premier, also some really fantastic things about the culture of Victoria. As somebody who has only been in Victoria for just on 10 years, I'm a blow-in from up north, I can tell you there's a very tangible difference from a multicultural perspective between Victoria and New South Wales. And I wouldn't change that for the world. And a big part of that are, in fact, these sorts of events and these symbols that some people really don't ascribe as much value as they should. So I'm really proud and privileged to actually be here with you tonight as part of that symbolic journey that we're all about to start. That reaffirmation, that recommitment that we have, that what we have in Victoria is something really special. But we need to be working together to make sure that tomorrow is better than today and the day after is better than tomorrow. So I'm hoping this is just the beginning of what will be a really fantastic journey that not just our own two communities, but we can broaden to much broader than that. And how much more symbolic can you get than two Abrahamic faiths meeting in the home of a third Abrahamic faith to start that journey? Thank you all.
Thank you. Firstly, like others, I'd like to acknowledge traditional owners of the land on which we are currently present, the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'll do some acknowledgements, but I won't try everyone since there was a very extensive list previously, but I think it's worth just acknowledging the wonderful work that the Jewish Community Council of Victoria and the Islamic Council of Victoria have undertaken to bring this fine event together. Yeah. And it's testament, and there was the discourse earlier from Mr Krariem about the sort of difference between Victoria and New South Wales and the sort of culture. And in Victoria, as Multicultural Affairs Minister, it's something, that culture is something that I know is very precious. We talk about bipartisanship about multicultural affairs, though we have members from the Green and representative of the Greens here tonight as well. It's more than just bipartisan, it's non-partisan. But it's not just politicians who have that culture. It's community leaders. You know, it's the AFL, it's the police, and Andrew Crisp is here. They do a fabulous job in Multicultural Victoria, the police, and it's something I certainly acknowledge. But it's much more than that. There is a culture of just seeing other people and seeing their fundamental humanity first. And there is always a struggle between empathy and fear, and delegitimating people, dehumanising them, or seeing that fundamental humanity and seeing whatever differences exist, they exist within the framework that all people have a fundamental dignity of their human existence that we all share. And an event like tonight not just is part of that Victorian culture, but it's a really seminal, I'm really proud to be here tonight, because great work like this is not just done by politicians, it's people in the community taking it upon themselves to take positive action, to reach out to other people and to see in other people the opportunity to make the society better. And for this dinner represents a really profound step along that path for me. And I'm really proud to be here as the Minister for Multicultural Affairs, which I do regard as an utterly critical role in this community. But it's just a testament to the goodwill and that Victorian spirit of understanding others and building upon that understanding that makes me so proud to be here. But I just really, on behalf of the government, and I'm sure everyone here who's not from the two organisations, just pass on my deep and profound gratitude for this event being held. Because these sort of events are about identity. You know, symbolism, as was mentioned earlier, is very important. And a symbolic event like this sends a profound message to the rest of the society that strengthens the hand of those of goodwill, that strengthens the hand of those who believe in empathising with others and understanding their needs and their common humanity. So I'd just like to say on behalf of the Victorian Government, I'm very pleased that the VMC and the Office of Multicultural Affairs has supported this event, and it's a testament to the great work that those organisations both do. But it's just a very proud moment to see people of goodwill building upon that great Victorian tradition of multiculturalism, but not just building on it, making it much stronger, because we can do more and we should do more. So thank you very much. It's an honour.
Thank you very much, David. And I'm really not precious about disclosing my age. I'm very proud of it. Thank you for the kind introduction. It was a truncated introduction, and thank goodness, because after 19 years of being in Parliament, you do accumulate a bit of history. So, just to sum it up before I do also make some acknowledgements, I guess, having been elected in 1992, I've had the opportunity of being in government, in opposition, in government and in opposition again. I've served in the upper house, first of all in the lower house, in the upper house, local government, state government. So I guess, you know, you do accumulate some experience that you can draw on, and that's why I feel that very privileged to have the opportunity of serving as the Shadow Minister for Multicultural Affairs, not only because of the experiences that you draw on, the connections that you have, but also the background and the experiences that I bring. But I would like to acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues here. Obviously, Robin Scott, he's the Minister for Multicultural Affairs, and his wife, with whom I've been enjoying quite a conversation. There are a number of other colleagues, of course, David Southwick, the member for Caulfield and Shadow Minister. Good to see him. And David has had a long-standing involvement with not just the Jewish community, but with many multicultural communities. And I think many of us here appreciate all of the work that he's done, and we hope to be able to piggyback on some of those introductions and some of those insights and work, David. Philip Diladakis, member for Southern Metropolitan Region. Khalil Eady, good to see you here, member for Western Metropolitan Region. Nina Springle, with whom I represent the Southeastern Metropolitan Region, along with 3 other colleagues. And for those who perhaps don't quite understand how those regions spread, so I represent everything that's covered by the city of, apart from the statewide role, cities of Frankston, Kingston, Greater Dandenong, Casey, most of Monash, a little bit of Glenara, and some of Knox. So it's over 500,000 voters, you know, very multicultural. In fact, Dandenong would probably be the epicentre of our multicultural communities, with more than 50% born overseas. So I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity of serving in the Victorian Parliament for that many years, but also in this particular role. I would also like to acknowledge the President of the FCCV, Murray Davies, Andrew Crisp and his lovely wife, the Assistant Commissioner of VicPol, and this is the second function that we've shared today, the President of ICV, Gaith Krayam. Now I've been practising the next one, Mehmet Kuchuk Sakari. How's that? Yeah? Thank you. Was that 9 out of 10? 8?
10 on 10.
10 on 10. Thank you. And the reason why I thought I'd like, we've crossed paths before, and I just think it's not, for me, it's not appropriate, being a bit of a traditionalist, to call a Consul General by his first name. Not on the first meeting, anyway. And my surname is not that easy, so I do appreciate when people make the effort of actually finding out how to pronounce it, so I just wanted to reciprocate. Jennifer Hubbard, former member of the Victorian Parliament and President of the JCCV, congratulations on your election. And could I say, you look wonderful. Now, if this is what we can look forward to post-parliamentary life, it obviously comes highly recommended. John Searle, Chairperson of the VEO HRC, and John has been around for a long time, and great to see him here tonight as well. Shin Tan is the Chair of the Multicultural Affairs Commission. You've changed your shirt.
Yeah, I had a shower too.
And does a magnificent job as Chair, of course, supported by his Multicultural Affairs Commissioners, and we have Graham Leonard here today. I've got the order of the names correct today. But Shin is absolutely everywhere and does an amazing job in being an advocate on behalf of the state government of the day, in promoting multiculturalism and multicultural harmony. And obviously this is a key event in terms of the week, Multicultural Diversity Week and Harmony Day today. But as I said today in the address of the Viva Festival opening, we live multiculturalism every day. Every day. You look around this room, the people that it's brought together, you look at the marriages that are happening. And you look at the relationships, the memberships of organisations. We live multiculturalism every day, and we celebrated a few special times. But the reason why we're all here is because it is an amazing formula, the best in the world, and most of us who have migrated from other places have done so because we haven't lived in paradise. But this is as close as it gets. And the onus is on all of us to continue to build on the multicultural traditions, not just tolerance, but that respect, that inclusion that has made this policy such a success. And it's not just a bipartisan, it's a tripartisan or multi-party policy. We all have to support and have to make sure that multiculturalism works. That is our future. We can't afford to have it fail. And so thank you for pulling together this event, Jennifer, and all of the other community leaders, because it is setting a direction that I think we've really got to focus more on. I would also like to acknowledge my good old friend, Councillor Jamie Hyams, I don't know how many terms you've now served in council, but I remember putting up your first billboards in my mother's back in the front yard. But it's good to see you here. Distinguished guests and religious leaders in particular, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm honoured to be here tonight with the Jewish Muslim Friendship Dinner, the inaugural one. And the Honourable Matthew Guy, Leader of the Opposition, sends his very best wishes and warm regards. And he, like me, congratulates the Jewish Community Council of Victoria as well as the Islamic Council of Victoria on the hard work that you have undertaken to bring this event together in this Catholic centre. What an amazing centre it is, apart from the car parking, which is not too flash. It's the rooms, the function rooms are quite amazing. Tonight does give us an opportunity for all of us to come together as one and be thankful for the many blessings in our lives and the religious freedom that we share to practice our beliefs in a harmonious fashion. As I was sitting here talking, the minister's wife asked me how long I had been a Liberal. And I said, I've been a Liberal all my life, even before I knew the organisation existed, because I was born under communism. So the lack of freedom of association, the lack of freedom of speech, the lack of freedoms full stop was something that we felt every day. It was in the marrow of our bones. So I knew I was a Liberal before I knew that any such organisation ever existed. And eventually, obviously, I've joined that party that is symbolic of all the things that I aspired and my family aspired towards. We need to only look around the room to see the spirit of inclusivity and goodwill at play, a spirit that I think helps to build a prosperous society, a harmonious society and a secure future for all Victorians. Nothing is perfect, so we have to continue working. And clearly there are challenges emerging that we must work together in order to meet. What is most wonderful about tonight is to see people from such a diverse range of backgrounds. And I was speaking to one of the imams today, and he was explaining to me the work that he was doing in our prisons. Very important work to make sure that our young people who find themselves on the wrong side of the law have an opportunity to rehabilitate and rebuild their lives. And in particular those young people who perhaps are alienated or feel isolated, as often as a result of migration. And I know I did. It's great to see that work is being done. In part, what we're doing here is tilling the soil that has been seeded well through positive intercultural and interfaith relations that our multicultural policies foster. Jewish and Islamic families know well, of course, that when a family eats together, they stay together. This being confirmed by social research, which also now shows that conversations over a meal are opportunities to bond, plan, connect and learn from one another. It is an opportunity to share information and news, foster new understanding, form new friendships, cultivate affection and a sense of belonging, most definitely a unifying experience. So tonight is a very welcome opportunity for Victorians to come together to experience the beauty and richness of our diverse faith communities. As Victorians, we eagerly embrace and respect cultural and religious diversity, and every day there are thousands upon thousands of examples of Victorians from different backgrounds living, working and celebrating together. So it is appropriate that we come together on the last day of Victorian Cultural Diversity Week celebrations and remind ourselves across any religious divide of a unity we share and the value we place on cooperation, harmony, tolerance and respect. I'm very personally pleased to participate in this dinner and am proud to be the Coalition's Shadow Minister for Multicultural Affairs, with paternal grandparents originating in Poland and Germany and the Balkans, being born under communism, to a father who was a Catholic, a mother, husband and son who are of the Orthodox religion, growing up with Muslims in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I know why I personally value the opportunity of living in a country and a state that supports diversity in all of its manifestations, cultural, religious, ethnic and linguistic. Transplanted to this fertile multicultural soil, we can be proud of our backgrounds, proud of our stories, and I was sharing a couple of those. One, my son who was born here in Australia is now 30. I remember the first time, and it's the only time, that I took him to visit where I was born. That was a great ambition, so he could understand his roots. And my parents lived in abutting villages, warring. One was an Orthodox village and another one was Catholic, and they should have hated each other, but what happened was that they eloped. Their parents, much to their parents' consternation, eventually The families got on wonderfully well, and my father was probably the most welcome guest in their home. But I remember as a little girl walking the path of the unsealed roads through and up and down sort of hills and bush and forests and so forth, crossing streams, as a little girl, carrying my doll from one grandmother to the other. And I wanted my son to walk that path with me. And when that was my dream. And when we went back to Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1997, my son was 12. And we walked that path together. And he and I cried every inch of the way. So the importance of understanding your roots, even though you may have been conceived somewhere else or born elsewhere, is just so important to that sense of belonging, to that identity. Because otherwise, if you don't understand who you are, how in the hell can we understand others? And obviously, as a result of migration, individuals and communities may have values, attitudes, practices that are in direct conflict or in contradiction of life in our inclusive and multicultural democracy. And it's our responsibility to work individually and collectively to resolve these inconsistencies, retaining the best of our cultural backgrounds and embracing the opportunity we can enjoy together. We're indeed proud of our reputation for successfully harnessing the many benefits of our faith communities to make our society stronger. And JCCV and ICV are great promoters of interfaith understanding in our community. And so thank you all for all the work that you have done and continue to do on behalf of all of us. Both the Australian Jewish and Muslim communities are an integral part of our society, and we do share the common values of equality, mutual respect and understanding here in Australia. In conclusion, and I was thinking what I was going to say to sum up last night, so what do? You Google. Some of our ministers Google too. And sometimes you might come up with a nice line, and a lot of the time you don't find anything particularly suitable at all. And could I say, I struggled to find anything suitable to bring together the concluding remarks of this brief address. But I found a few that I'd just like to share with you, and it's mostly focusing on food. 'Tis not the food but the content that makes the table's merriment. I hope everyone, of course, had some merriment, and no doubt that will continue. The old one, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Man does not live by words alone, despite the fact that sometimes he has to eat them. And for politicians, be careful of the words you say, keep them soft and sweet. You never know from day to day which ones you'll have to eat. Another one, if God had intended us to follow recipes, he would never have given us grandmothers. I love this one, being in love with New York. A nickel will get you on the subway, but garlic will get you a seat. I remember those days when we first migrated to Australia and it wasn't acceptable to eat salami or garlic. This is a good one. Trust no one unless you have eaten much salt with him. Cicero. We don't eat a lot of salt, but I think the metaphor is not lost on all of us here today. And this one from Lucille Ball, I thought I'd include that because it's hilarious. The secret of staying young is to live honestly, eat slowly, and to lie about your age. But lastly and sincerely, food is our common ground. It's a universal experience. Thank you for sharing it, and I hope that many friendships will arise out of this inaugural dinner. Thank you for the opportunity of joining you, and enjoy the evening.
I know we're all waiting for supper, so I'm not going to be too long. To the Honourable Minister for Multicultural Affairs, Mr. Robin Scott, to Mrs. Xiaojie Wu, welcome to you as well. To Inga Peulich, the spokesperson on Multicultural Affairs, to Jennifer Harper, to Gareth Kriam, to David Marlowe, to Neil, to the Consul General from Turkey, Mehmet Küçüksakala, welcome to you, and to my commissioners as well, welcome. But too many names to mention, they've all been mentioned, they're all welcome. The Minister is correct, he holds one of the most critical portfolio there is. It's a role in which there are no mistakes allowed, because you lose one whole generation. It's not like you had a bad health policy and then you say, well, gee, we lost 2,000 lives. We can try and repair that. But in this area, and we don't get it right, we're going to lose one generation, perhaps even more. And the outcome will be so obvious for us all to see. So it is not just about education, it's not about some policy that you can put out there and tomorrow hope you get it right. You don't try, you do. Because there are no possible avenue for trying to reverse the mistakes we make. So it is important for that reason, and it is an appreciation of what this role entails. When I took on this role, I said to my officers 3.5 years ago, and I said, we're the closest to being a church within government, because we don't make hospital beds, we don't create roads, we don't make products, we don't deliver services. We're about the message about how to live in peace. That is what you're on about. So I said, well, in many ways, I said, and I went on a little bit further than I should, I said, I'm your bishop, you are like the priest. That means minister, and that makes you the archbishop, and the premier, the pope. But it is that capacity to see that our role is different. I had a colleague up in some other state who came over and said, so what's the difference in what you do in multicultural affairs? What's the difference about what you do in delivering health services or education? Well, I said, well, that misses the point. We're not about delivering those things. We're delivering an outcome, a way of life. And for me today, it's an important element. We started off this in a series. We spoke to the Jewish community and said, let's do this. So we sponsored one that had an Indian Jewish function, we had a Chinese, and now we had the Muslim ones. It was meant to be smaller than this, but everyone's gone into the act, which is good. But the whole idea was really for the Muslim communities and Jewish communities to sit here without even me, politicians, anyone else. No. And it will still happen because it's important that you sit among yourselves. And the Consul General from Turkey said, this is a beautiful event. I said, Consul General, you're right, but I want more. Because I want more of this, because many countries can't do this, but we can, but we're not other countries. We're the most multicultural place in the world. We should have done this 20 years ago. We're doing it now. Why? And the depth of the discussions we have has gone beyond simply saying, we had a wonderful friendship dinner. So what? What does that do for you? What is the depth of that conversations? You raise issues you talked about you won't dare raise anywhere else. Back face to face with your Jewish counterpart, you talk about issues. What about the Muslim Jewish community members who won't be here today for a different variety of reasons? Why aren't they here? How do we get them here? Because we're going to measure the success of multicultural affairs by the incidents we have, the commotions we get. It's too easy, but we measure it by our capacity to be resilient every time it happens. We're not going to be immune from the rest of the world's problems. We'll always face it. It's going to be out there. So we're not going to take off, oh, we got 14 in a year. That must be a good year. Well, it's not the measure. The measure is, despite these things coming at us, how do we maintain our capacity to live the life we've chosen to live? You know, we say we're diverse. In many ways we are. But our diversity is mind-boggling. I mean, it's a diversity within diversity. We have a whole array, even the Muslim community. We were talking to a friend today at the bookend of the Muslim world between Turkey on one hand and Indonesia on the one hand and the rest in between. We have them all here. It's not just the Kurds in Turkey or some Muslim groups here and there. Malaysia, as a Malays who are Muslims. And some Pakistanis, some Indians perhaps. But we got it all here. And Jewish communities from different array of background, they're all here. I'm not even talking about the Nepalese, the Africans of 22 tribes from Sudan, many of whom are here as well. With all that diversity, how do we handle what we have? Many places in the world will do so using the law. Malaysia has a Sedition Act, and they all got different things to tell you. You've got to be very sensitive in what you do in a country like this because racial issues are dynamite. So in this country, we don't have that, thank God, because we frame it on the basis of goodwill. We believe we can get along without the law telling us how to do it. And we got a whole array of different things, to Human Rights Commission, Charter of Rights, that give us some semblance of this common right that we have, give us a sense of our decency. Can that go on? How long? Right? If we don't self-manage, The law may have to manage it for us and tell us how to live our lives, because there's so much diversity in this place. There are issues we're each content with. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that multiculturalism is not working. It is working. It is working beautifully. But for us to make it work deeper, when the storm comes and the tree is going to stand and withstand the storm, that is when we need to build those deep roots for us to find that meaning. So discussions for you will be important to talk about those issues that you won't talk about anywhere else perhaps, but frame the capacity to do that. Multiculturalism can be approached two ways. I've got people who will come to me in a very cynical voice and say, oh, look, you know, those groups will never belong, they will never be part of this country, here and there. You can approach multiculturalism as an ideal and an optimistic approach and saying, these are things I believe we can achieve that no one else has. We believe we can frame a future based on our capacity to live this way, this life, this diversity. Or you can be a pessimist, and you can be a fatalist and said, the reason why I'm involved in doing what I'm doing, and Chin is in his job to keep it safe, because we know it's all not going to work very well. And therefore, we need to do this job to protect the best we can, to keep the very best element of what is a very unsuccessful, a very improbable outcome for us all. So you can approach it that way, and I'd rather we approach it with the idealism that we can make this place different, a special place. Here you have two groups, substantially, from two communities, where the rest of the world have found it very difficult to maneuver and talk to. You're sitting in one place. The Consul General is ecstatic about this. But we want to take it to a place where there is far deeper meaning, for which these two communities can work together in a way that's never been seen around the world, that reaches out, that can give us lessons about where these communities in total can be able to grow, can mature, and develop into a place where the future would not be able to recognize. And it is a future that for me is a very short timeline. I always talk about 10, 15 years. Where will we be? And those probably timeline coincide with my own personal experience. I mean, I've got a daughter who's in the 20s, who'll probably end up marrying a Persian Shiite Muslim boy. Their kids will be different. In 15 years, they will live in a different world. Well, their world will be far better, easier, safer than it is today. But those are big questions. Do we have a role to play? The answer is obvious. Of course we have a role to play. So my pledge is this, and I'm pledging on your behalf, because we can't do the work. The minister is right. The work is yours to do, because everyone in this room, the leaders from both communities, can make a very big difference, can make a difference in the way the future will be in 10, 15 years. So this is the beginning, and I hope we can, perhaps in some ways, and David and Niall want to approach me again about how we can make this a continuous event, but a far deeper place for which the Muslim community leadership and the Jewish community leadership can sit down and talk about issues, deep issues, about how we can frame our future and make it prosperous and safer for us all. So thank you very much, but don't stop here, please. The work has just begun. Thank you.
I think, as was said during the night, this is very much the start of things. We probably started things a couple of years ago when Neil and I and Mo and a couple of others in the room worked on a Jewish-Muslim comedy debate. And there are other things we've got planned for during the year. Some things a bit more concrete than others in the planning process. We've got a leadership conference which we're organising for, which is an interfaith leadership conference, and Neil will be attending a planning day for that next week, as with a couple of other people that are in the room. And that's going to be aimed at young people, new and emerging communities, and communities that need a bit of help getting their stuff together. And I've had some very established communities and faith groups say that they want to be involved as well, because although they might have been here 150 years, they don't feel very together. And I think people here tonight feel very together, and so it's a good place to start in doing some concrete things. There are people here that we worked with on things like the Racial Discrimination Act, Section 18C, fighting against changes to that. I think by having friends and understanding each other's interests and commonalities as well as understanding the differences, we can work together towards really concrete ends and have a good time doing it. So thank you very much, everybody. Please enjoy the fruit, coffee and desserts. I think I can recommend the chocolate mousse if it's on. Thank you.
One, two, three. All right, everybody smile. Whoa, my goodness.